Welcome back to the Fire Burns Within channel. Time for another one of my anniversary reviews. The mighty Def Leppard released Adrenalize back in 31st of March 1992. It's reached the grand old age of 30. Wow, such a long time. I mean, I'll be honest, I haven't probably listened to this album this millennium, so I listened to it, you know, in the last millennium, in the 90s sometime. I wasn't a huge Def Leppard fan by any means in the 90s, but I was going through a Def Leppard period. Like once I got into hard rock and metal, you know, there were certain bands which I was binging on, and Def Leppard was definitely one of them, and I'm sure I binged on this album as well. But I haven't listened to it in this millennium for 100% certain. So I re-listened again for the purposes of this anniversary review. So the album opens with "Let's Get Rocked." It's a very famous song. As soon as you hear it, you just know it. You know, even if you're not a Def Leppard fan or anything, you would have heard this song on radio or MTV way back or wherever. You just would have heard this song, and it sounded cool. You know, if you don't hear the song too often, which I haven't on these songs, they don't outstay their welcome, so it sounded cool. Track 2 is Heaven Is. I couldn't even recall this song. It sounded really good. I really like this one. It's not as cheesy as, say, Let's Get Rocked. I thought it was really cool. Track 3 is Make Love Like a Man. This one is another one of the huge hits from this album. As soon as you hear it, the memories come flooding back with this album. It's unforgettable, really. I mean, it's one of the cheesiest songs on the album, but it was cool anyway. Track 4 is called Tonight. Again, I couldn't recall this one well at all, but it was quite good. I quite enjoyed this one. Darker feel to it, almost a ballad, you could say, a slow burner if you like. Very good Joe Elliott vocal on that one, very enjoyable. Track 5 is White Lightning. This was a really cool track. My memories of this one were very vague. It was really cool, really moody, sort of almost Whitesnake-ish a little bit, but not so much. Not vocally, obviously, anyway, but just the music just reminded me of Whitesnake for a little while. Really like White Lightning. Track 6, Stand Up, Kick Love Into Motion. Wasn't a huge fan of this. I've obviously heard the song, but it didn't sound that great this time. Sounded a little bit pedestrian, a little bit like, slightly inferior version of previous songs that they've done in the 80s. Track 7, Personal Property. I quite like this song. I mean, I was reading a review on this album, and people were saying that this is a filler track, and listening to it again after so long, it sounded really quite energetic, really fresh. I quite like this track. Maybe it's just me, I'm weird, but I quite like this track. Track 8 is Have You Never Needed Someone So Bad. This is another one of the big hits, a big ballad. Yeah, I didn't really like this song too much. I'm not really a ballad guy. I mean, it sounds good. I can see why everyone, well, not everyone, but the ballad fans will like it, but I wasn't so hugely keen on it. It was okay. Track 9 is I Wanna Touch You, a typical stop-start Leppard riff. Chorus is pretty cool. Nothing special about the song, just sounded like a inferior version of songs that Leppard have done before in the past on previous albums. And we reached the final track, Tear It Down. This is a rock solid song. I really like this. It was sounding fresh to me because I haven't played it so long. It wasn't like ingrained on my mind, but once I started listening to it, it just came back and it sounded really cool. It's a really rocking way to end. Apparently there are 2 bonus tracks, but the one I listened to was just the standard 10 tracks on the album. So my final thoughts on the 30th anniversary of Adrenalize, is that, yeah, it's slightly showing its age after 30 years. It's a good album, no doubt. I mean, it pleased most Def Leppard fans, I would say. It just sounded like a sort of Hysteria's slightly inferior little brother. It didn't, I don't know, it just lacked a little something. It sounded good. I mean, I enjoyed the listen. You know, grunge was probably just about to blow up. I think it already blown up because Nirvana released Nevermind in 91, so late 91 or mid 91. So grunge was getting big, so albums like this were, you know, not going to do that well. But this album still did really well hits wise and sold well in the millions. I haven't got the figures, but it just sounded a little bit like they were trying to relive the glory days of the 80s and not just quite getting it right. I don't know. It sounded good, but just slightly a rehash of the 80s glory days. But anyway, Adrenalize is a good album. I mean, if Def Leppard did an album like this now, I'm sure they'd please many of their older fans, because that new song they released a while ago, I must admit I'm not a huge fan of the kick song. I don't know, it's harking back to very early 70s style, and I don't know, I think most people prefer their 80s style, or if they want to be really huge again, maybe it's worth to go back to the 80s. I don't know, but we'll see how the album turns out. But Adrenalize is 30 years old, so what do you Def Leppard fans think of it on its 30th anniversary? Okay, stay tuned.